So I've done tier lists on this channel of redrafts, positional rankings, and where current teams are, but something I haven't done in a minute is a head coach tier list. So that's what we are going to be doing today. What is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing? Yeah, this is going to get interesting. Ranking head coaches, we could be all over the place with this. We got 30 coaches that we are going to rank. Nate McMillan is on this as well. I'm going to be just putting in Quinn Snyder instead of him. So instead of saying, oh, Nate McMillan, this is basically Quinn Snyder. I might just kind of be bouncing around with who I want to put up there. I'm not going to go in order. And yeah, this is going to be interesting because I don't even know who my top coach is in the NBA. I'm probably going to have that once we're done with this, but we're going to basically be doing this right now. How have they been basically over the last year or so, and where do I trust them going forward? And yes, some of these coaches were dealt the wrong hand. They might have inherited a really poor team, and there's really not much they could have done. But I can't keep doing that for everybody. Could keep doing woulda, coulda, shouldas, but I'm not going to. So yeah, Stephen Silas, first one today. He's going to be in the F tier. He's most likely going to be fired or let go at the end of the season. The Rockets have been disappointing for probably the second straight season. You'd hope to see a little bit more development out of Jalen Green. We've been seeing a little bit more out of Jabari Smith lately, which is nice. But on the grand scheme of things, some coach has to be in the F tier, and that's going to be Stephen Silas. Steve Kerr, I'm going to give him an S tier. He just won the NBA championship last year. The Warriors have definitely been disappointing as the reigning champs, but Steph, Clay, they've been injured this season. Andrew Wiggins has been out for personal reasons. They've had a lot of influx to this roster, and yes, they have been disappointing, but he's the reigning NBA champion coach. He's in the S tier. He won his 4th title with the Warriors last season, so he's definitely going to be up there in the S tier. Mike Budenholzer, I think, is probably a perfect example of an A tier guy. He was actually going to be fired if they didn't make it or win the 2021 finals. He ended up doing so. You could say that they were going to be back last year, but they didn't have Chris Middleton, and he gave the Celtics a really good fight there. And it's like one of those things, like if he were able to beat the Celtics and go to the finals without Middleton, he definitely would have been in that S tier. But I think Budenholzer, he definitely comes with his flaws. He was maybe bailed out by Giannis in that 2021 playoff run. By the end of this, I might drop him down to B tier, so we're going to keep him at A tier for now. I think Jason Kidd might be in the D tier, and I don't think that he's, like, a lot of this goes into the track record as well. Like, he didn't work out in Brooklyn. He didn't work out in Milwaukee. Somehow just hurt Giannis's development. I don't know how you do that. And this year, there's been a lot of trouble with this Dallas Mavericks team. They definitely underachieved to start the season. Then they kind of caught fire. They traded for Kyrie Irving. They've been disappointing since they got Kyrie. Now you could put this more on the general manager because they really just didn't address like their defensive need at the deadline, and they traded away their best defender in Dorian Finney-Smith. But they've been underachieving with one of the best players in the NBA. And yeah, I'm putting Kidd in the D tier. He hasn't really shown. He did lead them to the conference finals last year. Okay, I'm going to talk myself into C tier, but there's a chance I end up moving him back down to D. Just because, yeah, the conference finals run, I got to give him respect for that. Monty Williams, I think, is an S tier coach. Maybe he's in that A tier. I don't want to give too many coaches the S tier reign. So maybe he's going to go into A tier for now. He has a coach of the year last year with the Phoenix Suns. The Suns ended up making it to the conference finals. He led them to an NBA finals appearance back in 2021. This is all relative, like this, or tentative, I should say. I could be changing this by the end of this. Now let's go up to JB Bickerstaff. I think Bickerstaff is probably a B-rated coach. He's done a fine job in Cleveland since he's been there after the whole John Beilein fiasco and that shit show that was there a couple years ago. He had kind of a new roster this year with Markkanen and Sexton, who was hurt last year, gone, bringing in Donovan Mitchell. So yeah, I think he's done a really good job. There's definitely some flaws with his coaching style as well, but I think he's right there, probably in that B tier. Chauncey Billups, I'm going to put him into the D tier. I don't think that Chauncey's a bad coach, and he was just a rookie coach not too long ago, so he's definitely getting new to this, and he's becoming, I think, better over time. But the Blazers, once again, another disappointing team this season. On paper, this team should definitely be probably at least better, or a little bit better than the Jazz or maybe the Thunder, and they just have been disappointing. They've not met expectations this year. They didn't meet them last year. I know he's been improving as a younger head coach coming in back a couple seasons ago, but I can't really say that based off progression. Like, he hasn't done much. I'm not too excited about his future. I don't think he's going to get fired at the end of the season. I think he will be back, but yeah, he's in D tier. Mike Brown, I kind of want to put him in A tier, but for now I'm going to put him in B. He's going to win Coach of the Year this season, and that might solidify him into the A tier. The Kings are are one of the best offensive teams in the league, one of the worst defensive teams, and Mike Brown kind of had a defensive history, so that is interesting to see, and how the Kings will maybe adjust that going into the 2024 season. But yeah, exceeded expectations with the Kings this year. They're going to make the playoffs for the first time in forever. They've been kind of lucky in the injury department. A lot of their top guys have not even missed a lot this season due to like either long-term injuries. But yeah, he's a B tier coach for me. Mike Malone of the Denver Nuggets. I think I'm going to give him that B tier as well. I think there's been also like a report that if the Nuggets disappoint in the playoffs, he's going to be let go. And he did have that conference finals appearance in the bubble, but he has been there for a while. And that is the only conference finals appearance they've had. They had a disappointing playoff exit last year. Now he was without Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. But I want to see him make it to that maybe NBA finals. All three of these coaches above him have led their team to an NBA finals within the last 2 seasons. I would like to see that from Malone in this playoff run if he wants to get that A tier. If he can go to the finals, minimum A tier. If they win it, you could probably maybe make an argument for the S tier. I don't know though. I think B tier is probably perfect for him right now. Doc Rivers, oh man, this guy is the king underachiever. He's a C tier coach for me. Like, he won a championship with Boston back in 08, and he's had that team. He's had the Lob City Clips. He's had the Paul George and Kawhi Clips for a brief stint when they were both there. And now on the Philadelphia 76ers, they disappointed kind of the past few seasons. Now this is, I think, the year if they do not make it to the conference finals minimum. I think it's just another disappointing season for them. I can't put him any higher. He hasn't had that success at all since he won that championship with the Boston Celtics. So he is a C tier coach for me. Greg Popovich is a tough one to rank. He's going to be an S tier coach. Like, if he's in a rebuild right now, and we know what he's done in the past. He's won championships with multiple different rosters, with the Kawhi Leonard-led Spurs, with Tim Duncan's-led Spurs, and he has had great teams in his history. And I think, like, yeah, the Spurs team has not been great since Kawhi left them, or if they traded Kawhi away back in 2019. They were okay with LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan. I still think Pop's history, he's the best coach in the league, like, or at least when it comes down to it. Now, I would love to still see Pop coach a good roster. We haven't seen him coach a good roster in a few seasons, so I think if you want to make an argument for Pop at the A tier, that's okay, just because the Spurs haven't done a lot lately. But just Pop's history, and he's one of the greatest coaches of all time, he's got to be in that S tier for me. I think Eric Spoelstra is also an A tier coach right now. I think a lot of this could come down to general management and a poor roster construction for the Miami Heat. But I think, like, yeah, Spoelstra, he's been one of the best coaches. He's one of the few coaches on this list that has an NBA championship. It was with the Heatles, but he brought that Miami Heat team to a championship appearance back in the bubble. The year later, they ended up, well, they lost in round 1 that year, but then they ended up losing in the conference finals last year to the Boston Celtics. That was definitely a better team on paper. Spoelstra, great coach. He's going there in A tier. Nick Nurse, man, first year in Toronto, wins a championship. I think he's like in the B tier. It's been disappointing, and I don't think he's going to be on the hot seat. They reported his contract, which kind of is some rumblings that, you know, he could be on his way out, but I think he's going to be probably towards that end of that B tier. He's definitely fallen off a little bit since their championship run. The Raptors have been disappointing this season. With a ton of talent on the team, he's going to be in B tier for me. So, Ty Lue, championship winning head coach with LeBron in 2016. I think he's going to belong in that A tier. He's had to manage so many different players, like load management and coming in and coming out with the LA Clippers. So, I don't want to knock on him for not really being great, at least last year, because Kawhi was hurt. They ended up not even making the playoffs, lost in the playing tournament. But back in 2021, without Kawhi, he coached a great series. The Clippers upsetted the Jazz without Kawhi to go to the conference finals, in which they ended up losing to the Suns. But that was a great coach series by Ty Lue. He's going to be in A tier for me. Let's move on here to Tom Tibbs. This is an interesting one as a Knicks fan. I think he's a B tier, but I think he's one of the better coaches in the B tier. If I wanted to do like a quick ranking off these, I'd probably go something like this, maybe. Maybe Tibbs is at the top of the B tier. It's really tough to rank these guys in their tiers of their own, but he's taken these Knicks teams and had the best seasons of Knicks basketball of this century. They overachieved like by an immense amount back in 2021, where they ended up losing to the Hawks in round 1 of the playoffs, but he got so much out of D Rose, out of Barrett, out of Randall, and the last year was disappointing, 100%, but this year the Knicks look a lot better. He has Jalen Brunson, he has Josh Hart now, he has Isaiah Hartenstein. He's done a great job getting the best out of those guys. So yeah, Tibbs, B tier for me. Joe Mazzulla, a tough one to rank. I think I'm going to give him the C tier right now. I want to see what he could do in the playoffs. He got that extension after being their interim coach after the whole Ime Udoka thing. So he's going to be in the C tier for me. I got to see what he could do in the playoffs. They've had some bad losses as of late, and this is just the first full season we can rank of Mazzulla, so he's very tough to rank. He's going to be in the C tier there. We can go on here to Taylor Jenkins, who I think also belongs in that B tier. We'll see. Like, he needs a good playoff run to coach a great playoff series to advance. I mean, like, last year did okay against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think maybe a little bit better against the Golden State Warriors, and they dealt with their fair share of injuries. So Taylor Jenkins going to go in that B tier. We'll see what happens with Ja and that roster, and if Steven Adams comes back before the end of the playoffs. Now let's move on here to Dwayne Casey. Good coach, respectable coach in Toronto. He has been dealt with a lot of crappy teams in Detroit. I think he's a D tier coach. I think, like, also if you look at this Pistons team and the development since they've been in their rebuild post Blake Griffin, who have they really developed all that well, right? Like, Sadiq Bey ended up getting traded because they didn't want to re-sign him. I think he's maybe done a fine job with Isaiah Stewart. Killian Hayes didn't work out. Cade Cunningham is such a small sample size because he started off poorly to his rookie start, a lot better towards the end of the season, and he's been out all of this year. I think Ivy has done a good job being better over the season. We'll see with Jalen Duren. We'll see what he can get out of James Wiseman. But yeah, I don't think I could put Dwayne Casey higher than that going forward. I think Jacques Vaughn is going to be in the B tier as well. Like, similar to some of these other coaches, just had to deal with so much. Like Steve Nash going, replacing him, dealing with Kyrie, dealing with KD. They were great under him. He won Coach of the Month, and they ended up trading KD and Kyrie, completely change around their roster. And I think he's done a fine job. He's definitely in that B tier right now. Darvin Ham probably in the D tier as well. Like, this Lakers team, I don't think it's great. I don't think it's great at all, but I think some of the rosters, or the minutes allocation has been questionable this season, and we'll see if they end up even making the play-in tournament. They've also dealt with injuries, and like Mazzulla, it's a very small sample size. So for now, he's D. If we could see something in the play-in tournament and him coach a really good game, he could eventually go up to C. But yeah, small sample size, it's hard to rank him any higher. Okay, this is going to be Quinn Snyder. McMillan probably would have been D or F if I was going to rank him. I'm going to put Quinn Snyder in that A tier. I think they overachieved a lot with those Jazz rosters, and yeah, maybe it didn't end well there back in 2021 when they lost to the Clippers that I mentioned before with Ty Lue, but I think he's the right coach for the Atlanta Hawks. I think he's one of the better head coaches in the league, and I'm surprised he didn't have a job for that long. So yeah, Quinn Snyder, he's in the A tier, probably towards the end of the A tier, but in the 18 nonetheless. I think Wes Unseld Jr., I mean, the Wizards haven't been much. I think they actually have an okay roster, just because the lack of achievement since he's been the head coach there. He's going to be in D tier. I don't want to put too many coaches in the B or in the A, because if there's going to be some really good coaches, we obviously going to have some bad coaches, and maybe there's a lot of good coaches in the league. So just if you're ranked in the 20s, you're still a fine coach, but then you're towards the bottom of this tier list. So I'm going to put it in D tier because the lack of just what we've seen from the Wizards. They've had Beal, they've had Porzingis, they've had Kuzma. I'm not saying it's the best roster. I think it's probably one of the more mid rosters in the league, like a better word. But yeah, Wes Unseld D tier. We haven't really seen much of him at all in the playoffs. I think Billy Donovan is probably at the top of the C tier. The Bulls were great last year. Before Lonzo went down, he went down, and it was pretty rough. You could make an argument for Donovan in that B tier, but he's had some disappointing seasons and underachieving seasons in OKC, now in Chicago. Jamal Mosley, I'm going to put in the C tier. Now, if you swap Mosley and Unseld, maybe I'd look at them differently, because yeah, we've seen the progression from the Orlando Magic. We've seen guys like Wendell Carter Jr. improve, Franz Wagner improved, Markelle Fultz improved, Banchero having a good rookie season, and some of these other guys as well. We've also seen some disappointing guys like RJ Hampton and Jalen Suggs. You can throw Cole Anthony in there, at least some of the guys improving. Jonathan Isaac's been hurt. I think he's probably towards the end of the C tier, upper the D tier. But yeah, like these coaches, they weren't dealt these rosters, but it's what you could do with them. I think over time, we've seen this Magic team improve. I think next year is a really big test for Jamal Mosley. If the Magic do not even make the play-in tournament, he's definitely going back down to D. And I think if they do make the play-in tournament, beginning of seed, if they make the full-on top 6 seed, maybe up to B. Steve Clifford, a D tier. I mean, he accomplished not a lot in his first tenure in Charlotte, and now this can also come down on management, like I've said, but they've been disappointing this year. They lost in the play-in tournament last year. I don't really see the appeal in Steve Clifford at this point in his career. He's in D tier. Chris Finch, I think I might also, I'll throw him at the end of the C tier, because the Timberwolves did well last year. They gave the Memphis Grizzlies a fight in the playoffs, and then management goes out. They traded for Rudy Gobert. gutted his roster. And you know what? With Cat being hurt this year, implementing Gobert, I think he's done a fine job. They traded D'Lo. We've seen improvement, a lot of improvement from Anthony Edwards. We've seen the improvement from Jaden McDaniels. So I don't think that's going to fall on Chris Finch. We'll see if they make the playoffs. Probably going to be a play-in tournament team. C tier for me. I think Will Hardy might already be like towards the end of the B tier coaches. Definitely overachieved for the Jazz this year. We knew how hyped up he was as a coaching prospect, going to be on the market, gets poached away, or Danny Ainge just poaches him away from his former team over in Boston. He's done a great job with the Jazz roster that's had some influx as well. He's a B tier guy, and if they make the playoffs, yeah, I like that a lot. Honestly, Mark Daigneault, he has done a phenomenal job with the OKC Thunder. I think like when they overachieved a couple seasons ago, this year, I don't even know if they're overachieving, but we're seeing those young guys develop. Josh Giddey, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams. Nobody thought he was going to be a top 3 rookie this year, and he's been. And obviously, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is putting up MVP type numbers. Not going to be in the combo due to their team record, but he has been a phenomenal head coach. He's one of the best younger head coaches in the league, in my opinion, and I got to give him the respect he deserves. Honestly, Rick Carlisle, I think he's fallen off a little bit to the C tier. Now, he's been with a somewhat rebuilding team in Indiana. Last year, they were very disappointing. They ended up trading Sabonis for Halliburton. This year, I think they've probably been where they want to be, and they've done a fine job. But he won a championship, coaches one of the best playoff runs ever back in 2011 for Dallas. And over the last decade plus, it's been a lot of disappointment, a lot of underachieving seasons for Carlisle. If you want to say he's better than Vaughn or Hardy, you know what, that's fine with me. I can give him the respect. I'll bump him up to B tier for, I don't know though. No, I'm not. I'm going with my gut. I'm going with what I said at the beginning there. Carlisle, C tier coach at this moment for me. And lastly, we have Willie Green of the Pelicans. He is going to fall in the C tier. They were a little bit disappointing last year, but they ended up giving the Suns a run for their money in the playoffs. But this year has been very disappointing. Now, he's also dealt with a lot of injuries this year to Brandon Ingram and obviously Zion Williamson. So I'm not going to hate on him too much. I'm not going to drop him close to D tier. I think he's probably in the middle of the pack here, and he looked like he was a front runner for coach of the year when they started off like 23-12, but they've been very disappointing since. He does have a small sample size with the Pelicans, but he's going to fall into the C tier for me. So I'm not really ranking these guys within their tiers. That's just basically where they are. I also think I'm going to drop Quinn Snyder down to the B tier. So my S tier coaches are Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr, and then my A tier coaches, we got Spoelstra, Monty Williams, Mike Budenholzer, and Ty Lue. Over in B tier, we have Quinn Snyder, Tibbs, Mike Brown, Mike Malone, Nick Nurse, JB Bickerstaff, Mark Daigneault, Taylor Jenkins, Jack Vaughn, and Will Hardy. In C tier, Rick Carlisle, Billy Donovan, Joe Mazzulla, Willie Green, Doc Rivers, Jason Kidd, Jamal Mosley, and Chris Finch. D tier, we have Wes Unseld Jr., Steve Clifford, Dwayne Casey, Chauncey Billups, and Darvin Ham. And I'm sorry to Steven Silas, who is my only F tier coach. Shout out to Devin for making this tier list. I'll leave a link to it below if you want to take a look at this. Maybe make your own coaching tier list and let me know on Twitter. So yeah, my Twitter link is in the description if you want to reach out to me over there. Thank you all for watching. I love you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.